Tell me about your vision.
Well, my vision is that whether we run a business or we operate with friends, with family, that we think a little bit more holistically about our life. We don't just think we want to generate revenue, but we also need to maybe generate boundaries to take care of ourselves. Because holistic at the end of the day means yes, you're successful, you're aligning yourself by serving others, by helping others, but at the same time, the best entrepreneurs are the ones that actually help themselves too. They really create a solution that would have helped themselves maybe 5 years ago, and then sharing that with others. And that's usually where I see the passion is, because they say, I wish I would have had this in my life. And now I'm here today to share this with you and help you. And that is really what my vision is, that we're becoming more vulnerable and sharing what we struggled with. And by struggling and by sharing the struggles, we are becoming better entrepreneurs. And we're not just selling a product to make money, but we are actually selling something to help others.
I
Yeah.
love this. I love you. I have to say this. Like I absolutely love you because finding doctors and finding leaders who've been successful. You're a professor as well, and you've helped so many people throughout your life. And you stand for the exact types of principles that we stand for, and the reinforcement of that. Us coming together and sharing that thought process with others of valuing yourself, valuing others, um, making room for not just optimism, but also realism. I'm an optimistic realist myself. I practice both of those. It is, those are the keys that are going to unlock and open people's eyes to say, you know what, even though fewer people speak about this,
Mhm.
maybe what Dr. Christiana and what Jackson Callum and what Simon Sinek and what Stephen Bartlett and what
Yeah.
Patrick Choney, maybe what these leaders are sharing and bringing to the table is something that I myself can adopt. I got to ask,
Mm.
what's the story behind your why? And
Mm.
how did you develop such a strong why of
Mm.
existing for the sake of helping people tackle these big dreams?
Yeah, so you can hear it from my accent and the beautiful name, of course, that I carry, and I didn't change. So I have a different last name for my husband. Is grew up in Germany, and I think when you grow up in a country and then look at the United States, you always think of the United States as having that entrepreneurship mindset. So when I came to the United States and I pursued my academic career, I knew that I'm not going to end up teaching students things from a textbook.
Hmm.
So the university where I'm at now in California, the tagline is actually learn by doing. And I think that's my why. I have to run my own business. I have to struggle with my own business to really teach my students this is how we create businesses and this is how we sustain businesses. So I essentially teach them from my own experiences and teach them my own failures and my struggles. And I'm always applauding when they share their own failures and struggles as well, because that is what makes us good business leaders. So even though I have a bookshelf behind me, I am not just teaching from textbooks, but I'm teaching a lot from my applied knowledge. And counted the other day, I had about 10,000 students that
Hmm.
went through my classes. And I should probably also count how many successful businesses came from my classes and how many clients I've worked with. Because I think that's really the magic really comes in making yourself a role model that becomes very relatable to students. I teach marketing and teach innovation because I do this myself in my day-to-day life.
Wow, that's amazing. So it leads me to another deeper question along the same exact subject. So, um, and I don't want to keep this generic. Um,
Mhm.
there's a connection point here that I really want to try to dive into. You talked about Germany and the United
Mhm.
States and having different paradigms related to entrepreneurship. And
Mhm.
because I grew up in the United States, it's not fair for me to project what other countries think and feel, right? But I've talked to friends in Uruguay who talk about, one of my friends from Uruguay said, we grew up in a socialist society, Jackson. We don't get trained from a young age to open lemonade stands,
Mhm.
and to pursue entrepreneurial ventures. And I know there's other countries out there in the world that have their own paradigms and shifts of what have they learned. So do you mind shedding light on that further? Where did your eyes open to the idea of entrepreneurship then? And again, how did your vision unfold from there to realize, did you know you were going to be a doctor teaching entrepreneurship at some point way early on, or did that come later? Just lay it on us.
Yeah, I mean, I've always knew I wanted to become a professor. No, of course not.
Okay, I was like, wow.
No. I tell my students today in class, we were talking about custom ad channels and where products should be sold. And I said that frequently a product ends up in a total different channel than where you actually intended it to be. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur in a small business, that you can be agile, you can be adaptable. And it's the same with ourselves. Making a plan for what's my vision 5 years down the road, I think it's sometimes very overrated to really think, okay, 5 years from now, what do I want to do? Sets us sometimes up for failure because you can predict it. So, I mean, it's so difficult. You can maybe think 3 months ahead, 12 months ahead. Where I think personally vision comes from is by looking back, right? So you could say, what did I do 5 years ago, right? What was in my life 5 years ago that I struggled with? What was it that I maybe succeeded with? And then that, I think, is really where the magic comes in. So for me, PhD program, it was because I enjoyed learning. And I think, I was passionate about figuring out really some relationship between, so I connected food intake with economics. So it's called health economics, right? So when we eat food, what are the price decisions that come into making food and coming in our shopping cart? But then also, how can we change those prices to maybe steer food decisions, food consumption behavior? So that's really where my dissertation came in. And that's, something I'm really passionate about. But did I always think I want to eventually teach marketing and entrepreneurship? No. So I think the vision really comes from, you need to look back at your childhood. You need to look at back your teenage years, maybe even like early college years, and see what is it that you are passionate about that made you, like light up, and it came easy to you. It maybe was something that was difficult for others. What is it maybe that I call it the flow with my students, right? There you don't even realize time is going by that you're doing, and it's just you're totally in the moment. And those are, I think, the points when I was in a PhD program, I didn't sometimes even notice how time was going by because I was writing about a certain topic, or always doing certain projects, and I knew that that was probably my future career or something like that. I couldn't see myself standing in a lab and like creating like formulas or something. So I knew it had to be a PhD, something related to more research. Yes.
I love that. And I'm happy. I'm going to triple down with you on this because you talked about discovering and finding those passions and purpose, and that is something I'm extremely built on. It's one of our brands actually. So those of you listening in, Dr. Christiana used a term called flow, and I used to work for Flow Research Collective.
Oh my
I
gosh.
used to be representative of that brand with Stephen Kotler. Uh-huh. Did you?
Yeah,
I
what a
imagine you've rubbed shoulders or are aware of their program.
wow, amazing.
Is
No, I
is
mean,
that correct?
I use it in my book. I actually have a whole
Oh,
section
yep.
that
So
talks about flow.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. And that it's an important reality. There's so many resources out there to learn. And one of them is you can see drchristiana.com right here. Another
Uh-huh.
one that some of y'all may be familiar with already is our
Beautiful.
program, passionpro.org. This is something I incubated. And this will help people as well find that life purpose and that fulfillment opportunity and discover your passions. And it's completely free for people. So my hope is that all of you will take all these different resources, apply them for your own life, and decide what good can you take away from each of these opportunities, especially if these are new for you. And then, of course, there's all sorts of other great leaders. One of my favorite actors who speaks a lot on the subject, just look up Denzel Washington, right? And motivational speeches. The guy is so in tune with purpose and passion and excellence and giving the gift of that to others. So, Dr. Christiane, you sparked all of that. You are now one of those resources, those fountains of resource for myself to dive into and say, hey, what else can I learn from you? So I appreciate you coming in, bringing that to our audience. I'm going to ask one final question. And the question I'm going to ask is, it seems like you are a podcast pro. You've done these interviews before. You got more interviews coming up. What's your goal for being on this show and for other shows? Why do you do it?
Well, in general, I always try to just share like a little bit of knowledge. And I'm a firm believer we're all different types of learners. Sometimes all the be going from and to in the car and listening to something. And sometimes, maybe we're reading it and we might be reading show notes. So for me, by speaking on podcasts, it's another way to reach an audience that might just not have time to pick up a book and learn about the latest entrepreneurship or the latest business models, but maybe they can hear me speaking here in more layman terms about motivating you to start your own business and find your own superpower and just going for it. And I think that's what the beauty of podcasting is. It's something that will live there for legacies.
Yep.
Just like a book in the library, it will be there forever. It's not a TikTok video that will go away eventually, or like an Instagram story. It's going to be there and you can go back to it and you can get motivated. And so my inspiration is always that if I can just reach that one more person that is an audio learner that can maybe tune in, I would love that.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.